Your path is valid. You're not behind. You're on a different road. And one thing that I always want ITLs to know is that the profession is better for the perspective that you carry. Don't let the system convince you that your years of experience suddenly evaporated when you got to the border. Don't let them evaporate. Don't bury them. You can translate them.
Hi, welcome to Journeys of the Internationally Trained Lawyer, a podcast that follows the journeys and stories of lawyers here in Canada. I'm your host, Jumi Odepe, a corporate and commercial lawyer and also an internationally trained lawyer. And I have here with me Kenny Okunola, legal counsel, corporate and securities, president and co-founder of the ITL Network. I'll let Kenny introduce himself. I will take it from there. Let's do this. Hi,
Right.
Kenny. Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it that you took time out of your very busy schedule to be with me and talk to ITLs and people who are interested in our stories. I'll let you introduce yourself, and it's going to be more of a chat and flow so that I can really get your stories. So we'll start with introduction of who is Kenny, what does Kenny do right now, and then we'll take it from there.
Right. Thanks again, Jimmy, for having me here. I'm always delighted for any opportunity to share my story and also to share stories that relate to my journey as an internationally trained lawyer. My name is Kenny Okunola. I'm an internationally trained lawyer. I'm also a corporate securities and M&A lawyer. I currently work in-house with a publicly listed TSX company in data information and analytics company. I'm the co-founder and president of the Internationally Trained Lawyers Network and the convener of the Internationally Trained Lawyers Conference.
Thank you for sharing that. I think I'm just going to take it on from there. I want to know your story. You know, when we come here as ITL to Canada or the US, wherever you're watching from, people know the person in front of them. They don't know where you're coming from. So I want to know, before becoming a Canadian lawyer, what were you doing back in your home country? What kind of law were you doing? Give us a brief, what led you to law? Give us your story to the bar and then your story to Canada.
Yeah, thanks. The interesting thing is when I was growing up, I lived on the same streets as the Minister of Justice at the time. I wasn't a Nepo baby, so it wasn't like I was from a rich background, but I happened to be, living on the same street as the AG then. So whenever his convoy is coming in, I'm like, who is that guy? Like, I want to know who that guy is, right? I got
Yeah.
interested in knowing who he is. And I started seeing him on TV. I was like, oh, you mean that's the guy that I see in that convoy? What does he do? Why is he able to be in that convoy? And someone told me, oh, he's a lawyer. So I started forming the idea in my head that lawyers are successful people and lawyers are relevant people. Then I remember that I stumbled on this quote by the first lawyer in the country in Nigeria, Christopher Sopara Williams, when he said, a lawyer lives for the direction and the advancement of his people. I was like, it means lawyers have a role to play in the society. Whenever I'm in a family gathering, I see people asking me all sorts of legal questions. They're like, oh, so I have this traffic ticket. Oh, so I have a friend that wants to divorce someone. I'm saying, I'm not that kind of lawyer. And unfortunately, even I need a lawyer to do that for me. In case you're
Yeah.
wondering that if I have
Yeah.
a family law issue or, I needed to buy a house, I had to hire a lawyer that is
A
into
real
real.
estate lawyer.
Exactly, because I have
Yeah.
absolutely no idea what they do. And the
It-
law is such a wide profession with different
That's right.
expertise here and there. And I keep telling people whenever I'm in such gatherings, like, I'm a corporate securities and M&A lawyer. And they say, what does that mean? I said, well, basically, I help companies that are looking to start up, that are looking to raise funds, you're looking to go public, go private, you're looking to acquire and sell, whether it's asset or shares. That's really what I do. And then they look at me again and say, so basically you can't help me. Basically, you're not useful to me. I say, well, maybe. But, generally
Okay.
why I wanted to be a lawyer was I wanted to be relevant to the society. I come from a society where not everything was working and probably is still working. And you can get carried away with just, judging from the sidelines, making comments saying, yes, this is how it can be better. This is what should have been done. And I know I was never going to go into politics. So the only way to really make meaningful change in the society is to be a part of it. And the law is a very important part of society. The law is something that really is the foundation of society, from policing to the enforcement to
Yeah.
adjudication to litigation. It cuts into the very fabric of society that I felt like it was a good way to insert myself without necessarily going out on a limb to be a politician.
That's such a good start. And my story is also similar where I would see lawyers. I just like the way the outfits and the way they look so regal and all put together. I'm like, I really love this law. So when I had the opportunity to do, and from day one in University of Ife back in Nigeria, I fell in love with the law. Like from Law 101, I remember our first lecturer would make us feel so proud, you know, House of Lords. He called us in sections like House of Commons and yeah. So yeah, our stories are similar that way. Thanks for sharing that. So now we know your journey into law. What's inspired you? What kind of law did you do then back in Nigeria? And how did you, from law school, find your way to Canada? What prompted it? Was it instability in the country, or I mean, if you're willing to share that, and then your journey to Canada?
Yeah, I initially started off in private practice. It was litigation, ironically. I was in litigation for like a year or so. I remember then I had to go to court. And if you've ever practiced as a litigator in Nigeria, you remember that as a junior lawyer, you don't get the juicy cases. You get the
Yeah.
less desirable ones.
Yeah.
You get to go to the courts that the senior lawyers don't want to go to. So I remember I had to go to a courthouse. For whatever reason, there was traffic on the way there. So I had to get out of the car. I think I had to take a bike so that I can make it in time. I got there only for me to realize that my matter was not listed for that day. I was so mad. And then I remember that when I got back to the office, I was talking to my boss and I said, how long have you been doing this? And he said, I've been doing this for 25 years. And I said, really? Is this like, how long is it going to take me to be able to do the ones that I would really love? A part of me just didn't really like the court system, to really like the idea of litigation, going to court. I saw myself as a transactional lawyer. I thrive in making networks, connecting people, connecting with people, trying to do deals, trying to let people see my own point of view and things like that. Then I said, you know what? I'm probably going to give transactional law a shot.
All right.
So I went in house. So when I went in house, I started going into corporate finance. At some point, I joined a non-bank financial institution. It's a big pension company at the
Okay.
time, ARM Pensions, Asset and Resource Management. So I was legal
That's
and
a big one.
compliance. I think they were like the second biggest pension fund manager at the time after IBTC.
Mhm.
A lot would have changed now, so it's been a
Yeah.
while. But
Yeah.
I started looking into corporate finance, regulatory compliance, was dealing with PENCOM, I was dealing with investment managers on the investment side of things. We had a real estate business at the same time, Mixed Africa. We had stockbrokers, and it was really a different kind of practice that I liked. And I was like, yes, this seems more like it. This seems more like what I would love to do. And I started realizing that I think I thrive just sitting in an office behind a computer, drafting stuff, having meetings, negotiating deals, than going to a court, to a courthouse. So when I
All
moved
right.
to Canada, well, the decision to move to Canada was largely based on conversations with mentors, people based in Canada, was based on the desire to just, wasn't more like running from something, it was more like running towards something. I mean, of course, there were lots to not desire about the practice in Nigeria at the time, but it was not really because of that. Because there are lawyers in Nigeria that are thriving, there are lawyers that are
Yes.
doing amazing stuff in Nigeria. So I don't really think it's about that. It was mostly about, I asked myself that, where do I really see myself 5 to 10 years from now? What kind of practice do I see myself, thriving in? And I couldn't see that practice in Nigeria. I was like, what do I need to get there? I couldn't find that path. I couldn't make up that roadmap to really take me there. And of course, because I also have the benefit of talking to people. I remember I was talking to someone that already owned their own law firm, at the time in Saskatchewan. And I was like, okay. it seems like it's not a bad idea. I started looking into it. And I mean, I remember one of the things that I was considering then was, how do I move without having to lose time, without having to waste time going back to school, trying to do some other things? Of course, information wasn't readily available at the time. There are several things I wish I could have done differently. For example, I moved before I did my NCA assessment. Like, who does that? Most people are even finishing their exams these days before they move. I
Yeah.
actually moved. It was 6 months after I had arrived in Canada that I sent my NCA
Same with
credential
me.
assessment. So that was a
Yeah.
bad move on my part. But
Mhm.
I was looking into, because most of the people I was chatting with would tell me, oh, you have to come in here as a student, you have to come do an LLM, MBA. I was like, no, I don't think I want to do that. I want to be able to hit the ground running. So I started looking into the federal skilled workers, program at the time, which made a lot of sense when I looked at the requirements that, oh, you can start working from day one when you land, if you find a job. I mean, of
Wow.
course, Canada still does a dream. When you talk to people, not everyone was transparent about the expectations. Most people won't tell you. And of course, social media doesn't help, right? Social media makes you think life is great. You land, immediately everything is awesome. And
Beautiful.
you know, I feel like there's more transparency now because people have more access to people that are here. They can tell them the truth. It
That's
doesn't
right.
mean it's all doom and gloom or gloom and doom, but at least
Yes.
people can tell them the honest truth that, okay, if you're landing here as an internationally trained lawyer, you still have to go through that NCA assessment period. You still have to write
Yeah.
the exams. Unlike before, when you could write the exams, when I was writing the exams, then you can write everyone in one sitting. It's no longer the case. You have to write them quarterly, right? Because there's just one exam per month. And realistically, you have to take a break in between, right? Because you
Yes.
can't
You
write
have
an exam in February and be ready for an exam in March. It's just not
to.
possible, except
Yes.
you're a genius and you can study in 2 weeks, right? Maybe earlier than that. And you have to be honest with people that's going to take that time. And then the articling nightmare. You may or may not find an articling position, right? Maybe you are lucky and you find something. I mean, it took me 3 years to find an articling position. And I tell people it doesn't mean it has to take you 3 years. And it doesn't mean it won't take you longer.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
everyone's path is different. It may take you five
Yeah.
years and maybe it takes you a month. I've seen people that I've mentored, and whenever I start any mentorship session, I always start with this. What I'm about to tell you is just my story. It doesn't need to define you. The fact that it took me 3 years doesn't mean it's going to take you 3 years. And I've seen so many of them that got a place in a month, in 6 months, in a year. In fact, I know someone that got an offer to article. I'm not going to mention the firm, so you don't start reviewing the person's credentials. The person got an offer to article at a major national firm in Toronto before they finished their NCA. Of course, they have to promise that
And they're going to complete
they're
it.
going to complete it before the
Yes.
articling program starts because they typically hire you, to resume 1 year from the day you get your offer. That's typically what most national firms do. So that's just to say everyone's path is different and it doesn't mean it's going to take them that long. So we see a lot of transparency now. We see a lot of access to information with regards
Information.
to what really obtains there. Then there was really nothing like that. So I made my decision based off of my conversations with, this person that I was talking to. When I got to Canada, of course, it was a rude shock. I was like, oh, so you mean I should have done the NCA assessment? I thought I can just
Okay.
start working, like, just get
Just
here and
like
be
that.
lawyer. I guess I was also mixing up the IQAS assessments with
Okay.
the NCA assessments. Because when you go through the Federal Skilled Workers Program, one of the requirements is that you have to do the ICAS assessment, which basically evaluates your credentials. They'll ask for your law school degree, your certificates, your LLB. You do an English language assessment. So in my mind, I was like, the government of Canada has assessed me.
Me
And they
already.
that my degree, is equivalent because an equivalency assessment. And
So
they've
that's
already
something like
accepted.
West. It's
Yeah,
something
it's like
like
West.
West.
Yeah, but the only difference is IQOS makes a lot of sense for lawyers because
Okay.
even without having a master's, yeah, we're going into the realms of immigration now. Even without having a
Yes.
master's
Exactly.
degree, IQS assessments evaluates a law degree as a master's degree, even if you don't have a master's degree.
Master's
So it was
degree.
very advantageous. This was 2016, 2017 era. It was very advantageous to use IQOS then. Again, a lot has changed. It's been almost a decade, right? So it was
Yeah.
very advantageous
Yeah.
to use IQOS assessment at the time over WES because WES will still evaluate you as a degree holder only. But if you
Yeah.
have a master's degree already, you can go with WES. But if you don't have a master's degree at the time, If you go with
Okay.
IQOS, you get the
Yeah.
same points as a master's
Wow.
degree holder in the express entry system. The province of Alberta, I
Yeah.
don't know if they still own ICAS. They owned ICAS at that time. They were the ones running the ICAS system. So I thought the government is certifying that my degree is equal to their JD.
Yeah.
Why do I have to do any other assessments?
Yeah.
Like, this is the NCA. Who are they? Don't they know that the government of Alberta has certified me, fit and ready to work in the economy? Like, that's the way again, don't judge me based on what you know now. Judge me based on what was available
Of
a decade
course.
ago, you know.
Yeah.
And I felt like I didn't need to do anything. Then I realized I had to do the NC assessment, wrote the exams. Then I realized that I had to get a job. I mean, I did get a job really quickly. I got a job within, I arrived third week of June, and I think I got a job like middle of maybe end of August or something. So it was like within a 1 month, 6 week window.
Pretty, pretty
Yeah,
fast.
I got a job I think it was initially as a securities legal assistant. It was a temp job at the
Okay.
time for like 3 to 6 months. Was it for
Mm.
someone going away? They reached out to me. They said, "Oh, do you want to do this?" I was like, "Oh, why not? I don't have anything better to do with my time. I'll rather
Yeah.
be a securities legal assistant at a law firm than be hoping to get a job as, as a teller at a bank, right?" So I was like, "Oh yeah, why not? I'll take the job." And that was where my journey into being a securities lawyer actually in Canada
Wow.
started. So I think the firm then they've changed their name several times. It was Boston Winger Zamit, then it became Boston LLP. And I think it's a different name now, maybe DS Advocates or something. So it's a mid-sized
Okay.
firm, very good securities law firm. I was there for a
Wow.
while and then moved on to another role, was a paralegal role. Again,
Within the same
securities.
firm,
No, a different firm. It's
a
another
different.
mid-sized firm, securities paralegal role. I was there for like 2 years. And afterwards, I joined MMP LLP. I joined their team. It was right after MMP that I then joined Dentons as an article student, got hired back into Dentons, into the corporate securities and M&A group. And of course, that's how my journey as a lawyer in Canada started. But, just to take a step back, when I moved here, there was no information really. There was a lot of people doing things in silos. There were so many people not out of the desire to just hoard information. It was just more like people just didn't see the need for it. Everyone was just doing their own thing. It was a case of, I don't owe you anything. Why should I mentor you? Why should I talk to you? It was a case of, I'm here. Everyone is trying to keep their head down. Everyone is trying to
Yeah.
just make sure that things are going well. Well, I can see a lot of change in that.
Same here.
Yeah, now things are different. People are more willing to talk. Whenever I talk to an ITL, I tell them that it is very rare for you to reach out to another ITL that I would like to talk to you, and they'll say no. I haven't seen
That's
any before. I mean,
okay.
maybe I just have good people in my circle, but I haven't seen
So,
any ITL. Worst
yeah.
case scenario, maybe they are busy. Maybe maybe they don't have, the kind of timing that you are looking for available, but they will most often than not say yes. So yeah,
That's correct.
that's how I made that
Fine.
journey
That's
from Nigeria to Canada and my journey to becoming a corporate securities and MI.
securities. Wow. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. I totally agree with you. I came to Canada around that time. I got to Canada 2014. And I remember information was not readily available then. Also, the internet or social media has really evolved.
Yeah, yeah,
Back then, it was still, now we're in the jet age. Back
yeah,
then, it was still slow. I remember initially I wanted to go to the US to do my master's because I came to do my master LLM at the University of Ottawa. So while looking, I was sure I didn't want to leave my children in Nigeria because they were very little. So I said, I'm not going to go to a country where I can bring my kids with me. My husband can come later. We all came together. He brought us, then he went back to work. But those kids, I said, for me to pass very well in my LLM, I have to see my children every day. And so decided to come to Canada. But the information out there then was that you cannot come to Canada. You can come do your masters, but your children won't be able to come with you
yeah,
because they have to get and all those information. So I went on the website myself, the IRCC
yeah,
website
RCC, yeah,
myself. Then I saw that your kids can come as a visitor. When they come in, they're going to get temporary resident. I said this. I read it. So that was how I came based on that information that you said on your website. It's that when they get to Canada, they can come to school. And so then information was so, but now we have TikTok, we have
yeah,
Instagram, we have
yeah, yeah. The
YouTube,
Snapchat, Instagram,
we have
Facebook.
Snap. Then we started a culture in Canada where look, we can't do this alone. We have to help one another. And it just got better and better where you can reach out to an internationally trained lawyer. Like, okay, I need help with this. And we started forming groups like the ITL Network, the ITL Conference that you're doing. These are things that we didn't have then.
Yeah.
We were just alone. So yeah,
And
thanks for
yeah,
sharing that.
and also speaking about the culture, which you sort of mentioned there. Speaking about the culture, one of the things that has also changed significantly since then as well is I think we are getting to the age, and I was having this conversation. I'm going to go back to something shortly. There's a guy that came from Germany to the ITL conference in Toronto. He is the founder of an entity called Foreign Trained Lawyers in Germany, basically an ITL network, but in Germany, right? I remember it was myself, this guy, his name is Maji Kodumi, and Charles Osuji. We were having breakfast on day 2 or day 3 of the ITL conference in Toronto because we're all in the same hotel. We were like, you know what, let's just have breakfast and chat. And we're sort of defining the different stages. It's almost like the evolution of mankind. Like there is a stage where there is no information, where, and I think I probably maybe I should write a book about it, where there's no information. I maybe we should put a name on it, right? There's that stage where there's no information. There
Yeah.
is little to no acceptance in the
Mhm.
legal community. There's a stage where information is now starting, to really
True.
flow through. Acceptance level is rising. Then there is that third stage, which I think we are in Canada right now, where information is readily available. Institutional
Yeah.
acceptance is amazing, but we are still not really where we should be. And then there is that final stage where we then control the narrative. I don't think we are there yet, but I do think there's a lot of institutional acceptance now. I mean, look at the ITL conference. We have
Yes.
sponsors and firms that when you even approach them 10 years ago and you tell them we're ITLs, they'll say, what does ITL mean?
Yes. Right on
Culture
that. Yeah.
shift. And then the other
Mhm.
thing is, and that's on the side of the institution, but on this
Yeah.
side of the ITLs themselves, I see that shift you know, in the clouds, if I can, for the lack of a better word, that I think we
Right.
have now, and also in the fact that people are now proud to
Mhm.
say they're ITLs. It
Yeah.
was a thing, I won't say it was a thing of shame, but it
True.
was a thing that people tried to hide. I don't want them to know I didn't go to law school here. And I saw that a lot when I first moved here. Whenever I tried to talk to a lawyer that's already sort of doing well, and
Yeah.
whenever it came up, and maybe I reach out to them just like you reached out to me saying, "Oh, would you like to join a podcast or do something? Come on the show and talk to ITLs." They try to avoid it because they feel like that goes out there on LinkedIn and the public. Then their employers remember that they didn't actually go to law school here.
Yeah. And they might
And
tell them to
like,
go.
yeah, like they just want it's almost as if they are hoping people will forget their background.
Yeah.
That's the way I see it. But I think there's that shift now where we are proud to say I'm an intern. Like if you go on my LinkedIn,
I'm well
it's a
qualified.
2 minutes. What am I saying? 10 seconds to know I'm an ITL. From a headline. You already know.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
like
right.
I
Yeah.
mean, I think most ITLs too don't hide it anymore, but I
Yeah.
definitely don't hide it. Like I always tell my employers that before I take any job, I always tell them, I hope you know I'm gonna post some things that will be controversial on LinkedIn. And I've had employers that will tell me, okay, it's okay. Just, some will say maybe, state that you're posting it in your personal capacity. I've had employers that
Yeah.
probably will say, don't even list us on LinkedIn, so that way we are not tied to whatever you're doing. I mean, of course, you always have to come to someone. Some employers will tell you just sign some sort of undertaking. People have different
Undertaken.
policies, right?
Yeah.
So, but
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
culture has changed for sure, and there's
No,
still
you're
room
so
for
right
improvement.
on the money. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're right on the money. And sincerely, Kenny, if you write a book about that evolution,
I'll
and by
think
the
about
time you
it.
write it,
Life is so
I'll do
busy.
it again. I'll do
Like,
it again.
life is so busy. Maybe I'll get someone that can write it for me.
It goes right there. Okay?
Yeah,
Because, and then by the time you write it, I'm sure it could have moved again. But
yeah,
you're so right. Things right before our eyes, between the time I came in 2014 and now, things has changed.
yeah,
Both in the profession and even we as ITLs. One thing I'm also finding is ITLs are also really, really distinguishing themselves. Gone are the days where they're not giving them jobs because they're not giving excellent work out there. No, of course, we still have exceptions, but I
yeah,
think generally ITLs are bringing in the standard they were given and even higher. We know how I'm going to use Nigeria as an example. Nigerian lawyers are excellent. Actually, I think Nigerians are excellent in almost everything
yeah.
they do.
Generally, yeah,
Generally,
And,
I
and
was
and
very,
also, we have something to
yeah,
prove. Sorry to cut you. We have something to prove as well, not just to the system here, even from people that we left back home. We have, I mean, again, I
yes,
tell people to not feel like they have something to prove, but it's inevitable because when you move, again, most ITLs, and I think you can relate to this as well,
yeah,
most ITLs that move, because there are two categories of ITLs. That's one thing that most
right.
people don't always really pay attention to. There are
Mm,
ITLs that are originally Canadians. They lived here, they grew up here, they have the network. Their fathers and mothers and brothers and sisters are connected here, but they went
right,
abroad to study
right.
and they returned
Yes,
back home to practice. And then there
yeah,
are ITLs like us. We've never been
yes.
here before. I mean, I don't know about
Okay.
you. I've never been to Canada until I moved here. Never even came to visit. I don't even know what it's so wild when you think about it. I don't even know what the place looked like. At least you'd assume I would have visited once and be like, okay, I think I like this place. Never
Yeah,
visited, never came on vacation here.
you just packed your bags and
I
like,
just
I'm
packed
going
my
to,
bags and I said, I'm going there. Permanent,
yeah,
it's actually wild when you think about it.
it's
So there are
wild.
ITLs like us. Now
Yeah,
we have different challenges, but still sort of unite us. The challenges that we face is different from the challenges that ITLs that went abroad and came back face. The
right.
challenges they mostly face, they don't face the language barrier because they
Yeah,
already talk. In fact, most of them are less visible. We are visible minorities, visible ITLs,
yeah,
except the person is black, a person of color, indigenous. If they're Caucasian, they are less visible because they already
right.
look like them.
The
They are
same.
also less
Yeah.
visible because they already sound like
The
them.
accent.
I mean, I've
Mm-hmm.
been in this country for almost a decade now, but if you still hear me talk, you know I moved here. You know I didn't
Absolutely.
grow up here. You know I wasn't born here, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about it, they are not worried about will I go to an interview and someone will see me and be like, yeah, I don't want a black person, I don't want a person of
Yeah.
color, or will they
Yeah.
hear my accent and be like, what's this person
I don't
saying?
like where those guys
English is
talk.
this. No, they don't have those challenges, but they do have some challenges as well. And one of the major challenges that they have is they believe that they couldn't get into law school here, and that's why they went abroad. That's one of the major challenges. And the funny thing is, most of them didn't really go abroad because they couldn't get into law school here. Maybe there are some, but most of them that I've talked to didn't do that. They did it mostly because they wanted to experience the world. They
Yeah.
figured that, well, I have a passport that can take me anywhere. Why should I live and die here?
In
Why can't
Canada.
I
Yeah.
go study somewhere else? Why can't I go
Mm,
and experience a different culture? Not just through vacation now, but actually living there. And the best way to actually experience a country is when you school there, because you will
yeah.
make friends there. You will feel
Right.
more settled there than when you travel to a country on vacation. You are not actually
Yeah.
experiencing a
No.
country. You are in
Yeah.
the safe zones, tourist zone.
Right.
But when you study there, you live there, it becomes a part of your life. Some of them
Yeah.
decide to stay back. Some always come back home to say, you know what, I'm returning back to Canada. And then the
Yeah.
challenge start, right? So again, not to try and segregate that, oh, some ITLs are better than some. No, that's not the point.
Yeah.
But the point is there are different challenges, plaguing
That we
different
face.
ITLs. But when you bring everything together and you aggregate it, you will still see that they are institutional issues.
That's correct. That's very correct. And that's separation. It is just what it is. We come in from a totally different jurisdiction. We've never even been to Canada. Like you said, it's wild. The guts, the nerves. That's something that also baffles me about ITLs.
The decision to pack up and go, leave everything
Telling
you
you.
know, leave certainty. That decision is being it's I think the term in the business would be to be shrewd. Maybe the extreme part is to be cutthroat, right? So and I won't use that. But anyone that
Yeah.
can do that, I will
Yeah.
trust that person with my business because the
Exactly.
person is willing to do what it takes.
Whatever
And
to get
the
the
other thing is
result.
that most ITLs have been lawyers before, which
Yeah.
and the system in Canada is so rigorous to become a lawyer. The NCA
Yeah.
process, CPLED if you are
Absolutely.
in Alberta, Manitoba,
Yeah.
Saskatchewan, New Brunswick, and now BC. The bar
Yeah.
exams if you're in Ontario, so the
Yeah.
7-hour solicitor and 7-hour,
My goodness.
barrister's exams. That system is tough. To even now find an articling position competing against local talent, if you run through all of this, ITLs have been tested twice. And there's some ITLs that have even been tested in more than one jurisdiction prior to Canada.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it amazes me and it blows my mind when employers in Canada then overlook this because you're looking at
Yeah.
people that
Yeah.
are able to make decisions based on a worldview that your local talent can never have. No
Absolutely.
disrespect to local talent at all.
Yeah.
I've worked with so many
Respected.
local Canadian lawyers that are very brilliant. Most of them, there are some that are even brilliant than ITLs. But
Right.
when it comes to business, it's not brilliance alone doesn't cut it.
Yeah.
There
You
are
got it.
things that I've been involved with in this country. Even a very good example is the ITL conference. When we started talking about the ITL conference with a few people, there are so many people that were very instrumental in helping that, in kickstarting the ITL conference. It's a very long list of people. I'd rather not mention some names and exclude some so people don't get
Yeah.
mad at me. But it's a very long list of people. Some contributed more than the others. But the truth is, it was just an idea. It was an idea that sounded like an idea of a madman, really. That
Yeah.
you're going to gather people from all over the country under one roof, and you're looking at attendance of about 300 and above, and you're going to gather speakers from all over the
Yeah.
country as well for 3 days. And we're not talking about just some, random venue. You're talking about the, you know, standard conferences, right? And when you think about it, it's similar to just the journey of an IT. I remember I was chatting with a friend and I was like, if we can move countries, why can't we do this? Why is it difficult for this to be done? Like, what exactly is the reason? It's because of the budget. So we're talking about it, and then the budget seems like it was going to cost us like $250,000. And I was like, yeah, I don't, even if I have it, I'm not going to give my personal funds. But think about it. It can be
Yeah.
done because
It can be
people have
done.
done it before. And if people
Yeah.
have done it before, we can
You
do it.
can do it.
And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I really admire about internationally trained lawyers. And that's why I say brilliance is good. You want brilliant lawyers, but
Yeah.
brilliance alone doesn't cut it. We have
Mm-mm.
something
It's
that you
tenacity.
get: the
I think there's
tenacity,
that
the
tenacity.
grit, the shrewdness, the
Great. Yeah.
decisiveness. You
Yeah.
don't get these by just being the most brilliant
Mm-mm.
person at the U of C or at the U of T. Again, no shade on locally trained talent. That's not the point of
Yes.
this
No.
statement. But there are some things you get, some things are taught, some things are caught. You can't catch
Yeah.
some of these things. Sorry, you can't teach some of these things. You have to catch it.
No. It comes from experience too.
Exactly.
I, thank you so much, Kenny. Sincerely, you are speaking all the things that I've been thinking of, and some of the things that I was thinking of when I started this podcast. Sincerely, you're talking about it. I was talking with my husband recently about my experience from being a lawyer in Nigeria and being an entrepreneur back in Nigeria, and how different things that I've done back in Nigeria, and the strength to come from Nigeria as a lawyer, 10 years in practice, and then start in Canada and still be able to understand. I remember when I first started my master's in University of Ottawa. So I came in January 2014. It was freezing cold. I've never lived anywhere but Nigeria. I know how hot it is in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
driving, you know. So I took a bus. It's about 1 hour bus ride to University of Ottawa. So I wasn't used to the transportation system. So my husband he came with schooled in Sweden and schooled in Canada. And he said, Jimmy, this is how the bus system is. You have to get to the bus station at this time. I said, okay, I hear you. He left. I'll get to the bus station, Kenny, and I'll see the bus going. And those buses come in 15
Yeah.
minutes, right?
You have to wait.
And it was freezing. I wasn't used to the dressing, the layering. I tried my best, but I didn't have, the right things to wear. So I would be freezing and my fingers would be freezing. And one day I said, what am I doing here? Because
Why did I decide to come here?
I got
I
stuck in,
left. I left
we were,
a
doing- we were doing very well in Nigeria. We were
I left
doing
a
very
soft
well.
paradise to come into winter wonderland.
You know, my parents and my in-laws were like, you guys, are you sure? You guys you have good jobs. You have a good life. We said, no, we're going. So I'll be thinking then. So can you imagine the things that grew in me then? That's great that no, I'm facing this master's. I'm going to finish it and I'm going to finish it well. So when I finished, I started my NCA, started having challenges because it was a lot. And I had my children and I had everything. That grit said, no, Jimmy, you are going to finish it and you're going to finish it well. And then I went ahead, did my bar. You're going to finish it and you're going to finish it well. When I started my first job, the first law firm that got me, that took me on, you know, they gave me a law clerk, legal assistant, and all those stuff. And then I'm looking, I said, everything I've done since I came to this country and brought me here. Now there were some files that were coming that were totally new to me. But guess what? I will say I'm going to get it because if I can do my NCA, if I can do my masters, if I can do this, I'm going to do this and I will do it well. So it's just all those experiences of traveling over the sea, 6,000 miles overseas to come to a new country. It builds something in you
Yeah.
that you bring to the job. You bring it to the marketplace. So you're not, and the way I worked that first law firm that you think it was crazy. I put in everything in it, everything. And they really appreciated it. And that's one thing, when we're talking about the differences, I really appreciate the lawyers here too that have chosen to give an ITL a chance,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
because you don't know what they don't know me from, they don't know me. They don't know University of Ife. They don't
Yeah.
know Lagos Law School, but like, we're
Yeah.
going to give you a chance. And then we come in and we bring all those experiences, both within the law and outside, but we bring it and just make the law
The
firm
law and experience, the law and the life.
the
Yeah.
law and the life. Bring it on. So thanks so much for sharing that. The next question would have been about the ITL network. You've already started talking about it, but I just want to know more about what prompted you to start the ITL network. What's the ITL conference about? You've talked a bit about it, but just share about those initiatives with us.
Yeah, I mean, the ITL network was basically in response to some of the challenges that I already mentioned, which is that we're sort of all doing things in isolation. There was no national platform. I think there were some ITL organizations, but they were still sort of regional in their approach at the time. And I mean, there's a whole lot of history to the ITL network that I don't have time to get into. But the general
Okay.
overview is that we figured that we can nationalize some of our initiatives, some of our activities, and the way we go about our business as a community, which also sort of ties into the ITL conference, because the ITL conference was then to take it a step further. The ITL network wanted to start a national platform for ITLs, but then there was still one challenge. And the challenge is that we still had so many ITL initiatives across the country. We had the NCA
Mm.
network, or we still have the NCA network, ITL NCA networks in Toronto, Joy, just 1 year. There's Global Lawyers of Canada, and of course there are several other ones like FIDI by Osuji and Smith Law Firm, and so many other ITL initiatives that I can't even really list and name. Some are even being run by employers and law firms. There are ITL initiatives being run by tutors that train NCA students to write exams. And we figured that there is no way we can tell everybody to say, you know what, drop everything you're doing and don't do what you're doing anymore, because they're responding to specific needs in different communities. And instead of trying to go about a national platform by sort of having like one name or one entity for everybody, what if we all come together and collaborate for one truly national ITL platform, 3 days once a year, and we can all come under the same roof, really address issues that affect ITLs, and we're able to advocate with one voice, build a true sense of community, speak loud enough that the legal community in Canada will not have a choice but to listen. Because,
So,
when you're doing your things in your space, you are doing your, JITL podcast, we are doing ITL network, someone is doing the ITL this, ITL that. We're still sort of doing the same
it's
thing, but
silos.
in
Mm.
different places. We are not really, using our strength, by uniting and also synergizing our operations. Now, of course, there are different interests, there are different objectives. So it's very difficult to really achieve that national sense of ITL community approach, which is what the ITL conference really seeks to address. So ultimately, what we're trying to do is to ensure that we form that community. And of course, everyone still has to go back to their respective provinces, their respective cities to continue doing what they're already doing. But we can use that platform to address issues that affect us nationally. And some of these issues are, for example, what are we what do you want to say regarding the NCA assessment? Do we think the assessment process makes a lot of sense? What do we want to do regarding the article situation? It is something that is common regardless of where you are, whether you're in Toronto, you're in Calgary. Some cities are much more exacerbated than the others. For example, I know the ITL community in Calgary is really open. Toronto is also very open. I don't think it's the same way in some other provinces. Some other provinces are very conservative, still more non-ITL,
Friendly.
exactly, so, and that welcoming community is not really it's not really there like some of these other cities. And that can be the opportunity to then see how we can open up those communities, which is why one of the main objectives of the ITL conference is it's not going to remain in one city. we're going to be moving from city to city because we're trying to
That's
use
good.
that to shine a national spotlight. Potentially, we're looking at, you know,
Okay.
Vancouver and another city. Vancouver's sort of leading
Mm-hmm.
the race. I mean, we've been in Calgary, we've been in Toronto this year already. So if everything goes well and we end up going to Vancouver, we are up. So the goal of moving it around is to open up these communities. Because one thing I have realized in my journey as an internationally trained lawyer, trying to get into the system, and now as an ITL that is in the system, trying to open the door for others coming into the system, is
Others.
that so many of these firms and local employers, most of them are not really doing it because they don't like ITLs. It's just because people fear what they don't know. If they don't
Rightly
know
so.
it, they are afraid of it. So they don't know
Rightly
where
so.
you trained. They have no idea what the name of the school is. They don't
Yeah.
know the quality of education. I mean, think about it. Even if you're in Nigeria, you're an employer in Nigeria, and somebody tells you, I'm a
So
lawyer
good.
and I trained in, think of a country that is not so popular.
Within the country itself.
Exactly, even within the country.
Imagine
You
we're
know,
in Lagos.
yeah.
If something comes, let's say the person says, "Oh, I trained maybe a very small village in, let's say,
And then you're
Sokoto."
thinking, yeah, I don't trust your legal education. So when you think about it really, what's the challenges we are facing is not born out of wickedness. That's what I tell
Mm-mm.
people. It's just
Racism.
born out of the human nature. You
Yeah.
fear what you don't know. I'm very picky with food. When I go to a restaurant and I see a menu I've never seen before, I'm already skeptical. Will it be good? Will it be bad?
Same.
Should I stick with my steak and fries? Will it be good? Sometimes it's good. Sometimes I'm like, I'm never eating that food again. I don't want to
Yes.
ever see that menu again, whenever I come here, because
Yeah.
we by default, we are afraid of what we don't know. So they don't know. And I think what we are trying to fill with the ITL conference is to bridge that knowledge gap.
Gap.
Because
Mm.
when we have a conference where, for example, the last conference, we had the Justice of the Supreme Court of Canada as the keynote speaker. We have Associate Justices of Court of Ontario. The one in Calgary, we had Justice Chidima from the Alberta Court of King's Bench. We had, almost
Mm.
58 distinguished speakers for different panels. You're already breaching that information gap
You are.
because those people
Absolutely.
are taking their experiences from the conference, meeting with ITLs
Yeah.
firsthand. They're taking it back to their respective organizations. So the next
Right.
time they are interviewing an ITL, they remember. Because prior to now, the image that employers had of internationally trained lawyers is whenever I go to an event that ITLs are part of, they will be asking me for a job. That's the image that they have of us. That whenever they say there is a networking session for ITLs, you
Right.
mean if I'm the only lawyer or partner from a firm there, everyone will be asking me to give them an articling position.
Right.
But when we
Yeah.
can build that true community where we address so many things, we address ongoing challenges. I mean, we had a survey that was launched at the 2025 conference. We discussed it a little bit at the 2026 conference, which is basically to discuss the ITL experience. And a lot of things came up. For example, we talked about code switching amongst internationally trained lawyers, how people sort of have a different persona at work, almost like a mask. And
Mm.
the results were staggering. I will encourage you, go to the ITL Network's website.
Okay.
You'll see the survey reports. It's a 126-page document, and it was a survey that we had over 200 respondents. We ran it for more than a year. We had Brams Research and Analytics help us analyze the results. We've gotten the CBA involved in this survey report. The FLSC is involved, and we can see some of these issues coming up. And we can't really address these issues in silos. That's the truth
Yeah.
because they are
Absolutely.
not local issues or
They're
regional
not love.
issues. They are
Yeah.
national issues.
It affects
And
everybody.
and there's a
Every
lot of
I
work to be done. I
You mentioned something about an example of what you found on the result a report about people putting a different persona at work. I know it's so difficult. I once worked in a firm. The person I was working with, it wasn't a very nice experience for me. It's one of the first firms I will work before I even got called to the bar. And he looked at me one day and said, "How of you did they bring into this country?" I'm serious, like a refugee, because that's what I inferred from it. But I was too shocked to say, no, I came here to do my master's in law. That same firm, I had another love like who's Indian, lovely lady. She was on the call one day. She actually learned English when she goes into this country.
Yeah.
She was on the call and someone was talking to her. The person said, "Wait, I can't hear what you're saying. Your accent is so bad." I'm serious. What? And she gets angry and just bang the phone. But one thing is, I thought of it that if they had said that to me. And I know a lot of ITLs would have heard that,
Mm,
right? So then you're trying to put on a different kind of English. You know what I always tell people? Try, it's good. But you better just love the way you speak. Try, of course,
yeah.
if it's really bad, you want to try so that you're able to communicate. But if you can communicate well and people can hear you,
I speak
just
clearly. That's
and
fine.
speak clearly, just you're fine because you're going to kill yourself.
Yeah. The numbers are staggering. Like I said, we had over 200 respondents. And look at the numbers 58% of the respondents felt the need, I can share my screen, felt the need to adjust their communication style.
Yeah.
46% felt the need to adapt their behavior or personality. 31% changed or simplified their name to improve their chances during hiring or workplace interactions. 14% altered their appearance to better align with expectations. 49% agreed that they felt the need to engage in code switching regularly in their current legal practice. And these are not made up numbers. These are numbers, like I said, you can find the reports itself when you check just go to itlnetwork.ca, you see the reports there. These
Okay.
are numbers, and we did these survey reports in partnership with the Counsel Network, which is now a part of Cardwell. And the Appendix A to the report also includes the raw data from the actual survey. It has several
Wow.
sections on rating of foreign legal credentials, bar admission process in Canada. You
Yeah.
see another session on, and you can see the demographics of our respondents from the different provinces that they have been called to the
Okay.
bar in. You can see the year they were all called to the bar, the different demographics. You can see that, the huge chunk of our respondents were 2021 to 2023 calls,
Question.
with some between 2011, 30% to 2020.
Mhm.
And there is a whole lot. And it's so sad when you go through that report. I mean, again, there's a section on challenging securing employment, cultural differences, community
Mhm.
networks and support. And of course, we didn't just do these reports solely because we are hoping to just identify the issues. We already know the issues. We did this report because we wanted to be
Yeah.
able to have data,
Mm.
recording these issues. All these issues are probably going to even keep coming up on your podcast. So these issues are there. We wanted to
Mm.
just record it, have data, because I've been
Mm.
trying to the law societies. We have ongoing relationships with a few law societies. And one of the things that we're trying to do now in the next couple of months, I mean, we're already sort of planning for the next conference, which is a lot of work on its own. But one of the things we're trying to do in the next couple of months with regards to this report is the formation of a national steering committee, which you will see at the base of the report, which comprises of the CBA. The CBA sort of have agreed in principle. We've been speaking to their equity subcommittee group, and the FLSC too have sort of shown interest. We're still yet to advance the conversation with them, but the goal is to bring all the law societies together, all the relevant stakeholders, recruiters, employers, interest groups, and see
Mm.
how we can actually make a difference. The unfortunate part is I don't think all of these problems will go away one day. I don't even think it will go away in our lifetime, in our career lifetime. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Because when you think
Yeah.
about it, I mean, think about the issues that Black, Indigenous, and people of color have been facing for generations. A lot of people started challenging these, and we are still challenging them, right?
Yeah.
So
But
I
it
don't
gets
think it's
better.
just going to disappear. Yeah,
It
but we
gets
can make
better.
progress. We can do our part to move the needle.
Exactly. Exactly. You don't leave the path the way it was. You make it better. So I mean, and thank you so much for this. I really wanted to speak with you. And I know the work you were doing, but I just didn't know the extent. You being here, as it means a lot to me. So I just want to say thank you
My
so much.
pleasure.
I mean, if by way, I know people like you don't need encouragement. It's not like you need that encouragement because you're a visionary. The thing is, I was telling my children just a few days ago, we're discussing about the Black stories and how for years, over 400 years, they've been fighting. And my children my boys, I have two teenage boys, they were honest. Like, okay, so what's the point? I said, there's a point. If you look 500 years back,
We're not where we
we're
used to be.
driving. You know what? I said, where we're driving, the kind of car we're driving, you can't. I said, but some people kept fighting, pushing it, pushing it. So it gets better. people start understanding blacks more. They start understanding, okay, if there's even a criminal, we started with a criminal case. My son was discussing the criminal case with me, and we said in the past, the jury will be different. There won't be any
Yeah.
black. But now that the discussions about the jury should have black if the black is the accused and all that, things are getting better. And I think it's the same with the ITL network, the ITL conference, this ITL conference especially, and all those initiatives that you're putting. Look at the data. I mean, that's amazing. So we won't get there in our lifetime for
Yeah.
sure, but it's getting better.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
work has to just we have to just keep pushing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Aluta
yeah,
continua.
I need to have this factor continue. And the information is power. The more people know about you, this is why I'm going to close on this note. I once had a lady that did my hair for me. She's from an African country. But when I came in, the way she accepted me and she was doing, are you sure? Because I'm Nigerian. She's not. But she knew everything about Nigeria. And she was doing, so later I said, come you know so much about us? How come you are even trying to speak my language? How come you understand when I say at the end of every sentence? She said, I watch a lot of Nigerian movies. So she has really educated herself and she's almost learned about Nigerians. So even when we speak, and some people might feel, oh, are you angry? She
Mm,
knows, no,
mm,
that's how they talk. You know, they're not angry, they're very nice people and all that. And that's the power of information.
yeah.
So all these things you're doing that we're doing, we're informing people about us. And it's going to just keep opening doors so that in the workplace, probably I'm not saying we'll raise our voice, but maybe we'll make an exclamation. They'll be like, oh no, she's a very nice girl.
Mm,
That's how she talks. They are very excellent people. They are very good with their job. So information is key, and
really,
that's
really
that's
key.
what we're doing right now. Yeah, absolutely. Kenny, thank you so much. I
My
think before we leave, just final thoughts. It can be anywhere, anything that drops to your mind that we've not really addressed, and we'll talk about it and then we'll round up.
I would just say that maybe just to ITLs, employers, and the general ITL community. And I'll probably start with ITLs generally that are still sort of going through this journey. I think we are all still going through the journey.
Yes,
The journey has
it's
just
continuous.
exactly. So even for me, I'm still going through a journey. I still need mentors that will tell me what I need to know for my next season. So I don't think the journey really ends. So that's probably the first thing I need to say. The journey never ends. So in case you're thinking, oh, I just have to get a job and that's it. No, trust me, there's a whole lot of things that goes on when you even get the job. So but your path is valid. That's the most important thing. You're not behind. You're on a different road. And one thing that I always want ITLs to know is that the profession is better for the perspective that you carry. And don't let the system, convince you that your years of experience suddenly evaporated when you got to the border and then got into Canada. So
Yeah,
don't let them evaporate. Don't bury them. You can translate them. Of course, confidence eventually comes the more you try to put that into action. One other thing is that find your community. Your community doesn't have to be necessarily people from your country. They have to be people that have your back. And
yeah,
that's the most important thing. So people mistake community for people that, share the same language, share the same background. It's not necessary. You can be a Nigerian and your community is an Indian community, but find people that
that's
will
right.
have your back. Community is not a luxury on this journey. It is actually infrastructure. So don't see it
Mm,
as, oh, yeah, it's a luxury. I don't have to. I can do it on my, I am self-made. I can do it all by myself. Not necessarily.
that's
You
right.
need community, you need information. And for recruiters that are listening, just in case, employers,
Yeah.
I just want to also state that the ITL talent pool is one of the most tested, one of the most resilient, and one of the most in Canada. And hiring ITLs is not a charity. It's actually really tapping into a pool of, talent that can even offer more than the general local pool of talent. So this would be my
That's
final words.
Oh my God, Kenny, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for pouring genuinely out of yourself. I'm really grateful. Thank you so
My
much.
pleasure. Thank
I
you so much
appreciate
for
it.
having me and
You're
wish you
welcome.
all the best for the rest
Thank
of
you.
the episodes to come.
Thank you very
Right.
much.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye for now.